Hey guys, we are taking yet another first drive of this all-new BMW M235 Gran Coupe, and this is an awesome spec. We have it here in the twilight kind of purple color, and we have these upgraded M-spec wheels here. I think this is a really cool finish. Check out how big these brake rotors are behind these awesome looking wheels. This is pretty big for an entry-level BMW as well, so you get some serious stopping power there, that's for sure. And we are even getting some M-style mirrors on this car too. A little controversial, but I love this color. I think this is beyond a facelift. I understand why BMW is almost calling it a new generation now. It's that different in its driving dynamics, which I think is really impressive. You know, rear seats are kind of tiny, as we know in this car. Let's hop inside, take it on a first drive. We have these really aggressive, sporty M seats here. A really nice upgraded interior derived from, of course, the new 1 Series that's not sold in the US, as well as the new X2 and X1 that we do get here. Stop start buttons down here. And it comes to life here for us. We have iDrive 9 here, touchscreen, huge heads-up display. Really cool stuff is going on in here. We have totally new design for this entire dash. So new BMW steering wheel, paddle shifters, cool M kind of stitching in the dash. Lots of really solid material. It feels way better built than the all-new Mini Countryman I was just in. But you know, this is a BMW. It better be. Glowing M badges in the seat with this really cool material here that we saw on the X2 M35, where you can kind of see the pattern behind this Alcantara gripping material here. Again, really solid BMW levels of quality in here. We have our drive modes as well, and it drives so well. They've really figured out how to build a front wheel drive based platform performance vehicle, which I think took a little bit of time from BMW to kind of really tune in, but this thing's impressive. It grips. It's on summer performance tires as well, so that could be potentially why, but it puts its power down well. It's very quick. The dual clutch finally has good tuning. I can say I did not like it in the X2 M35, but I don't know what they did here, but it works really well. Let's pop it into drive and head off. And one of I think the biggest changes here that we have is this all-new transmission. We went from an 8-speed automatic to a 7-speed dual clutch, and it offers some interesting driving characteristics, I would say. The shifts can be aggressive in some sport modes, but around town it's definitely a dual clutch in the sense you have a lot of that lurching style motions. You know, you can't really creep in this car in traffic. You really do have to come to a full stop. So there's some drawbacks and benefits there, and this transmission is also going to be found on the new X1, X2 as well. Now, this is an entry-level BMW in that aspect, so if you want the most powerful entry-level BMW, this M235, now without the I, is going to be your go-to bet. We're going to be having a cheaper version, to a 228 version, come soon, with I think around $40,000 starting price, a little bit cheaper than that. So you can have 2 options there. But in the US at least, we're getting X-Drive only, as well as M-Sport package only. So you can't get a non-M-Sport package 2 Series Gran Coupe in the United States anymore, which I think is totally fine. You know, people are very critical of this car's design. They have been, even in the last generation. I think it looks quite sharp, actually. Really right up there with like an S3, for example, and now the soon-to-be discontinued, or I guess discontinued A35 AMG. I think this looks quite sharp, really in line with all of the newer BMW M-style products. With these M-style mirrors now, a really sharp-looking interior as well. And out here on the roads, we do have the M adaptive suspension. So it's not a adaptive suspension in the sense where you can kind of specifically tune how you want it. It's kind of changing itself depending on the pavement it's on, as well as the drive modes you're in. So sport modes, it's gonna be a little bit stiffer, and with this M technology package we have, the car is just generally a little bit stiffer than without. Brakes are pretty good in this car. They're actually, the pads I believe are from the M3 and M4, so lots of stopping power, though they do make quite a bit of brake dust, I've noticed, even on these dark graphite wheels we have. Now, another great aspect of this car is we have quite a few different drive modes. We have personal, which is kind of a renamed comfort mode. I think it's quite good. We also have efficient, which totally transforms the driving experience of this car. You can get like 35, 36 mpg if you do so want. And then of course we have sport and a few other drive modes if you do have this upgraded package here. You can expressive mode, relax mode. These are all really more experiences just overall for the car. But sport mode really does do quite a lot, and you have a lot of different ways to tune it. You can go into Sport Plus, you can change your steering, you can change a whole bunch of different settings. settings. We have our Sport Plus modes set up here right now, so everything's in the most aggressive setting the car can actually be in, which is quite nice. These cool power gauges as well. And this is where you can kind of test this 7-speed dual clutch transmission we have in here. Upshifts, downshifts, pretty quick though. You know, it's nothing outstanding. It's nothing like a high performance dual clutch that you may expect. But you can pop this transmission into its S mode from the gear selector on the over here in the center. It does get a little bit more aggressive on upshifts. And you do have a lot of fake engine noise being pumped into the speakers, throughout the speakers in the car, with these kind of burbles and stuff from the exhaust. It's called the iconic sounds. It's honestly quite fun, but I have to say, compared to the X2 M35 we drove last year, this actually has a lot more natural sound than I was expecting. So it almost seems like BMW put some more time into this car's powertrain versus those. This 7-speed also feels a lot better tuned. It feels more aggressive than those other vehicles as well, as I've noted. Coming out of corners, we have that differential up front there. It really helps to put the power down, though it does feel like it's cutting just a little bit of power coming out of corners sometimes. I really wish it could kind of grip and kind of rocket you out a little bit. But one thing I do like about this car is that it doesn't really drive like a front-wheel drive-based car that much. They've done a good job engineering the suspension, even though it is very bumpy and stiff, as you can see on this road. But they've done a really good job at making it feel a little bit more of a balanced. There's a little bit more of an oversteer-esque kind of notion to when you go through corners versus understeer, which I think is a really good job in terms of tuning here. But you know, there's a lot of competitors in this interesting kind of premium, entry-level premium luxury style class. Of course, we have the A3 from Audi, the CLA from Mercedes as well, and some more other end of this spectrum as well. You know, if you go into the higher end front wheel drive only cars, just like a Civic Type R, the Integra Type S, those offer a little more higher end performance, especially on a track. This is a much better all around, more premium vehicle at the end of the day though. And even around town in these lower speed situations, popping it into efficient or personal mode, the total dynamics of the car can be completely changed. So that's one thing, you know, you're not really going to get in these other types of vehicles. The amount of dynamic breadth that you can get from these drive modes in this car is really, really impressive, and it's something I've only seen BMW really been able to master. One thing I will note though is I'm not too big of a fan of the driving position of this car. This rides on the BMW Group UKL architecture, which is primarily a smaller SUV style platform here, and you can definitely kind of feel that in this driving position. You do feel like you're sitting up a little bit higher than you typically would in a vehicle, you know, that's longitudinal rear-wheel drive, which is pretty much all of other BMW's vehicles. So this one is a little bit different in that aspect. If you do feel like you're sitting a little bit higher of a position here. Though, like I said, these drive modes really, really can transform the entire feel of this car. It makes it much more of an aggressive option when you go into Sport Plus, especially all of these modes turned into Sport Plus here. But what I haven't seen a lot of our viewers talk about is actually how aggressive this car can be. In this S mode for this transmission, when you're really on it, I really do like how this dual clutch kind of gives you this really connected, lurching feel to the whole driving experience of this car. And that's something you don't even get in a lot of the newer ZF 8-speeds and the more higher end BMWs. It's a little bit more of a smoother, kind of engineered in aggressive experience. Here it feels a little bit more natural, and I kind of like that. This car is a little bit more darty and fun to play around with. The steering, you know, it's not anything to write home about, but you do have a lot of quick precision and feel. It's a pretty quick rack. Not a lot of road feel, but I do have an idea of where these wheels are being pointed at all times, especially in relation to the car. And since this is, you know, a smaller wheelbase, a smaller vehicle overall, I feel pretty connected to the car, which I quite like. I just wish I was sitting a little bit lower and the vehicle itself was a little bit lower to the ground. These are just, you know, some platform constraints with the UKL, but from what they have and what they were able to do, I think this is a pretty cool proposition from BMW. I really would not be disappointed in getting this car. Now, the argument comes into play here is then, would you get this or a 2 Series Coupe? And I think this is where some people are just a little bit confused and I guess get annoyed that this shares a name with the rear-wheel drive based. Obviously, you can get xDrive 2 Series Coupe that gets pretty much the same engine, a little bit detuned, or of course the fantastic B58 inline 6 and the M240. And that's a little bit of a tough comparison now because this car is actually quite expensive, kind of creeping into that territory. It still is cheaper, obviously, but you know, it's a totally different package. It's like 2 kids going to the same school but ending up completely differently, if you want to think of it in that aspect there. But I think it is a little bit more of a better overall package than it was before. This is a really fantastic interior in here. I personally am a huge fan of this design. I think it works well now. Wasn't a big fan of it previously though. A little bit frumpy looks that, you know, some people go on to say about. Now, out here on the highway, you have some other great features that we have particularly optioned into this BMW. So we have our drive assistance professional package, and that allows us to have a really fantastic assisted driving system out here on the highway. As you can see now, all you have to do is press this button to turn it on the left-hand side of your steering wheel, and you get things like adaptive lane change assist. So I can press my turn indicator there, and it will switch lanes for me. If you're using the built-in navigation system, it's cloud connected. It's constantly being updated with live traffic as well. It knows when you have to get off and exit, and it will actually look for a space and move over for you with AR augmented reality stuff in there. So that's really cool. A lot of all BMW and Mini cars do have that today, which is quite nice. And at lower speeds, at around 40 miles per hour, it will go into traffic assist mode where you can have some hands-free driving, which is pretty cool. But this is a great system. It works really well, though. You do have to pay an option upgrade to get it. Out here on the highway, you can hear a little bit more road noise as well. You know, this car is running on summer performance tires, so they're a little bit sticky and grippy. Obviously, you don't have to spec these, but the stiffer suspension, this platform as well, it all is a little more louder on the highway. This isn't a smooth highway, I would say, so that could be aiding into the sound in here, but you can definitely notice and feel the stiffness and hear a lot of more road noise from the tires, though overall it's very well insulated, very stable, and very sturdy. It's what you would expect out of a German car. You know, at higher speeds on the highway, it masks that speed really, really well, especially in the efficient modes on the highway. It's really great at being efficient and teaching you how to be efficient. It coaches you to drive a little bit more efficiently. If you don't want that, obviously you don't have to use it, though. It definitely works on longer road trips, and you will see that range increase pretty high, as well as your MPGs jump into the mid to high 30s, which is pretty impressive for a car that has a lot of performance at the same time. Okay, everyone, to sum up this week in the BMW M235 Gran Coupe for 2025, you know, it's been honestly a really fun car for me as a driver to drive around this week. It's really fuel efficient when it wants to be. I think it handles itself pretty well. I think they've really tuned in their, you know, UKL driving dynamics for the BMW side of it. So I really do like that. And, you know, this does feel like a more improved vehicle than it was before. You have the newer gearbox, you know, it has upsides and downsides, I would say. A little bit more power and, you know, just overall tweaked interior design, exterior design, interior, just digital interface, build quality. Everything feels a little more special and designed specifically for this vehicle than it did before. Does it feel, you know, like more of a car than, you know, a 3 Series or a 4 Series? And when you consider the pricing of this particular one as configured with all these options we're seeing on this car, and there are still more, it's around $60,000, and you know, just for like 6, 7, 8 grand more new, you can look at like an M340 or an M440, lower specification, maybe not with all the bells and whistles you're going to get in this car, and even an M240 coupe for that example, which shares that architecture, that more traditional BMW architecture. So it's definitely an interesting proposition. I could expect these to become a little bit more of a better value for a potential entry-level BMW consumer used. Though once you start comparing it to some competitors like an Audi S3, which, you know, has more power, but though this is a little bit more of a unique vehicle than that car, I think it's a real true direct competitor. But you know, Mercedes is kind of moving out of the space just a little bit. They only have the CLA now, and I think it's bold for BMW to continue in this space. I'm curious to see how this car does. You know, personally, I think it looks great. I like the interior, I like the exterior design, I like the color choices, I like this fun, compact, sporty BMW package just compressed down a little bit. So yeah, that's how I feel about this car. It's definitely an interesting one. I think it's a little bit on the too pricey side for me personally, but from all the features you're getting, you're still getting that quality. You're still getting a cool signature BMW, I would say, driving experience. And overall, at the end of the day, it's going to be a pretty solid car that's both combines efficiency and decent handling and decent power all in one package with a BMW badge. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in on yet another video over here at Allcarnews. Make sure to subscribe, and as always, stay tuned for more coming soon. Cheers.